should there be mandatory DNA testing? Now, I've been wanting to do this video for a while. I just haven't got around to it because I had to do some research and all that stuff. I'm going to explain to you guys in this video why this is not a good idea and which group it would impact the most. Because if this was ever to pass, there would be a lot of problems. It'd hurt a lot of people, right? Now, to give you guys some context about all this, you have a lot of these guys out here that teach men how to be men. All these channels, right? And they push for, most of them push for this, for mandatory DNA testing. And the reason why is because they think that, some of them think that the majority of women are lying to men, that the child is not theirs. I looked into this myself, to all the claims they make about the data they're showing. Is this actually true? Because I didn't know, right? So I'm like, you know what? Let me find out. Let me see what's true. If it's true, it's true. I would say yes, right? But if it's not, then it needs to be dealt with. When I look up the facts, the data, it doesn't show what they're saying. If you guys stick to the end of the video, I'm going to kind of lay out some numbers for you guys. I'm going to, like I said, I'll show you which group it's going to impact the most. Stick around to the end of the video. I'm going to show you guys, all right? If you guys like the content that I'm putting out, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. I can't do it without you guys. I'm trying to reach 200 subscribers. That's my goal right now. All right, let's get into it.
The bill needs to be approved by the Ohio Senate, as well as reported by the committee, as well as being passed by the House before it would be sent to the governor. And right now, they're waiting on a fiscal analysis to determine the cost, as well as if state funding will be needed. Reporting live in studio, Laura Sandlin, WTOL 11.
W's down up into the chat for the young brother who was attempting to get this bill passed in Ohio, Rep. Josh Williams. I don't know if he's aligned more on the left or the right. I don't care. I know that I like this, though. For the life of me, I can't understand why women would be against this, but I found some TikToks we're going to go over, trust me, of women actively complaining that this may be a reality, but it's awesome to think that someone is standing up for what is a clear injustice.
He doesn't care because he's in his feelings. You see what I mean? One thing I could tell you guys is, you do not want the government involved in your personal lives. Trust me, you do not. Not just the women that are complaining about this, it's also some men. Because it has nothing to do with gender, man. It's because it's not a good idea. It's going to impact a lot of people. It has nothing to do with gender. They always do this. They always like, oh, women this, women that. It's just because they want to hide the truth from you guys. No, man. I mean, some women, yes, but it's not the majority of women. There's 3 ways that this is going to happen that I can see. If there's another one that I'm missing, feel free to comment on the bottom. But there's 3 ways that this can happen. You're going to get taxed. The other way you're going to do it, it's another tax. It's through Medicaid. The third one is going to be out of pocket. You don't have no choice. Either way, you're going to get taxed or you're going to be forced to pay. You see where we're going with this? You see the harm in this?
This pass, or should this not?
They should have this bill in every single state for non-married and married couples. Even if you're not in a situation where you have a significant other, it doesn't matter. They should have this. And if you don't know who the daddy is, at that point.
You see, a lot of these channels with these men, they claim that they're smarter, they think logically, and that women are more emotional, so they don't know what they're doing and they cause more harm. But these guys don't realize that a lot of what they're pushed is just emotional. It's not based on any facts or anything. It's because these guys have been hurt, or they're trying to push something because it feels good, or for other reasons. It's not always just based on because they're hurt. I don't believe this guy is emotional that way, but I do think he's being emotional in some way, as letting his feelings get the best of him. Now, I want to say this, man. I'm not at all saying that the women that are lying, because of course there are some paternity fraud that's out there, right? Of course. I'm not denying that. I'm not saying it's good for women to do that. Of course not. I'm not for that. I'm against that. Women should not be lying to these men and doing that. And I also think if they commit this kind of fraud, that there should be consequences. Because it destroys lives. It destroys people's lives. And most of all, it destroys the child's life. They can really ruin a child that way. So there has to be consequences, right? I do believe that. But here's the thing, though. For the guys that want to push this, they take away responsibility from the man and put it all on the women. It's not just the women, guys. It's also the man. We need to be teaching men to be more responsible, to start marrying the right women, right? They're picking these women that are just want to party. I mean, they're picking the wrong women, and it's obvious. Because the guys that I see that complain about this after seeing their lifestyle, I'm like, well, of course. Of course. Look at your lifestyle. Look at the women that you're involved with. It's not that it's the majority of it's the women you're picking, guys. Can't y'all be responsible like the rest of us guys? Now I already see some of these comments, and some of you guys be like, "Oh yeah, sure, that's what she tells you." Listen to me. Listen to me. You know. You know if there's a possibility if it's not your child. You know the woman she is. If you feel that way about the woman you're with, what does that say about you? Let's get into the facts part. Let's see what facts they got to say about this.
5 to 30% of the general population, men are raising and paying for children that are not theirs and don't know. According to the American Association of Blood Banks, between 25 and 30% of the males who are accused of being the father, they take a paternity test and find out they did not do it.
But so many women's groups say this wouldn't be fair. You're acting like you don't trust the mother. Why do you think they say that?
Why do you think they say that? Is she serious? You can't be serious. They say that because they don't want you doing no testing. Half the time they don't know who that baby daddy is. Hence the term, mama's baby, daddy's maybe.
So that's not the general population, by the way. That's not true. That's actually a lie. So let's look at it. Let's look at what he said. According to their data. And I did a lot of work, by the way. It took me a while to get all this, to verify everything, to make sure everything I'm saying is correct. If 5 to 30% of the men who get tested, that would means, and they're not the biological father, that still means it's about 70 to 95% that are the biological father. So by their own data, you want to force men to pay, right? Families to pay out of 5 to 30%. Are you serious? Because of that, even if this was the case, guys, even let's say if this were true, 5 to 30%, and you still want to force guys to do this, that's stupid. Now, what are the real numbers? The population-based peer-reviewed studies are the most accurate data we have for estimating misattributed paternity in the general population. This is how you got to get the data. So the data they're using is biased. When you get that study and look at the results, it's actually 1 to 3% that are not the biological father. How that works is they get tests that are not just from suspicion, right? But also for legal reasons and for other reasons too, not just for paternity fraud. They're taking into account for all that. And what they're seeing is that 1 to 3%. Does that make sense? Now, they're gonna say no, this is the right data, but that's of course that's gonna be higher because guys are willingly going there to get tested because they already had a suspicion. That means that's like saying 80% of sick people go to the hospital, so therefore 80% of the population is sick. That's not correct data, guys. That's not how you do data. That's not how you read it. So their data is correct, but it's misused, if that makes sense. I put that up there for you guys so you can verify yourselves. So you can see that where I'm getting my information, right? Okay, now let's get into tax. If this was to pass, let's look at the 3 ways that I was telling you guys. Let's look at first how much it would cost taxpayers. They're accurate numbers, but they're an idea in the ballpark somewhere, right? Ohio is what they're using, so we're gonna go with that. Now keep in mind, this is just for one state, guys. This is just for one state. Or imagine all the states, by the way. But anyways, here it goes. Around $50 to $150 million per year. The DNA test costs will call. You have to do it for the child and the parents, which is roughly around 200 to 400 per test. Where did that number come from? Because Ohio has roughly around 120,000 births per year. That's where the numbers are coming from. That's insane, isn't it, guys? So you would be forced to pay that out of your tax money. Now let's look at Medicaid. What if it was to hit Medicaid? How much would it cost Medicaid? Because the lower income families are not going to be able to afford it, so they're going to either go to Medicaid for this, right? So here we go. You're going to get taxed twice. It's pretty much what it is. Medicaid will cost around $20 to $50 million per year. That's because Medicaid often covers medical and legal testing for low income families. Yes, they wouldn't be able to afford it, so I know that's what they're going to dig into. So for these same guys get mad because women are on Medicaid, right? But they're pushing for this. If you were to push for this, it would make it worse. It would make it worse. I thought you guys were against this. But if you push it, I mean, they're going to go to Medicaid, man, and you're just making it harder to try to take away Medicaid. You're not going to win that battle. Okay, now let's look at out of pocket cost. How much would this cost out of pocket? Let's just say hypothetical, right? Hypothetically, if they were going to force people to pay out of pocket, this is how much it would cost: 200 to 400 per person, right? It's the same thing. So we're looking at total birth $600 to $1,200 a birth out of pocket. Now the numbers are different because depending on how they depending on how they want to tax or make people pay, the numbers are going to be different because there's different things involved in here. How much is that a year? We're looking at $70 to $150 million per year that it will cost families out of pocket. The middle class would hit the hardest because they can't afford, they don't qualify for Medicaid. They can't afford to have a bill that high already. You're already paying a lot of doctor bills on top of that. Imagine that bill. The middle class is being impacted the most out of all the families if it was to be out of pocket. Not as easy as saying, oh, there should just be mandatory DNA testing. There's a lot of other things that come into play here. You gotta account for everything else. These guys are just mandatory DNA testing, and that's what it is, without ever doing the work of verifying everything. That's crazy, man. That's crazy. Let me know what you guys think. I honestly want to know y'all's opinion down on the bottom. Let me know what you guys think, guys. Um, that's all I got for you guys today. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next one.